Farmer Tom here. Welcome to the Farmer Tomcast. Today on our ongoing series, Heroes of the Green, we've got Senator Positive Nelson from the U.S. Virgin Islands. How's it going today, Positive?
It's going well, man. I'm happy to be here, happy to be in this fight still.
Good. Well, the world wants to hear your story. I'm going to hand the mic over to you and mute myself, and the world wants to hear about you, my friend.
All right, well, good. I appreciate this opportunity. So just to get straight to the chase, my name is Positive Terrence A. Nelson. I live in the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Croix. The U.S. Virgin Islands is made up of 4 major islands: St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, and Water Island. I am now 55 years of age, and my story with cannabis is what I'm here to share. I have served in the Virgin Islands Legislature 14 years. I am now the Commissioner of Agriculture. I was a teacher for 10 years. I'm a martial artist for some 32 years. I teach martial arts for 32 years. I have 4 children, 3 sons and a daughter. I am married, and I support legalization of cannabis, of marijuana. And I said those things prior. I'm a member of numerous organizations. I said those things prior because when we find ourselves supporting legalization of marijuana or cannabis, all of a sudden we were being discredited by those in society who are in opposition, those in society who feel anybody who are supportive of cannabis is a dope head, a dysfunctional person. So I'm going to tell you my story with cannabis. Okay, of course, I grew up in the Caribbean, here on St. Croix, here in the Virgin Islands, here in the entire Caribbean. Cannabis is a common commodity, meaning marijuana is common in the Caribbean. If you ask me, marijuana is a Caribbean commodity altogether. It's, hot weather stuff. Okay, so it's been common all along, especially if you notice I do have dreadlocks. I am of the Rastafarian community. So from a Rasta standpoint, it is a herb that is used for sacramental rites, for, to get in the spirits, to use with cooking, to use as medicine. And it's in the Rasta community as we know it. So it's been common in my world. I ran for the legislature in 2004. And my interest in getting in the legislature, it wasn't cannabis. I'm known for cannabis now. That's the big thing. But it was really for to push for a more efficient government, to push for more accountability in government, and to see if I can bring some focus to that body in ensuring that we focus on the infrastructure of the Virgin Islands in order to have sustainable growth. I've always had an interest in food and farming and agriculture. It's part of my nature, especially as of being of the Rastafarian community. After about 3 terms, I did a total of 7 terms. After about somewhere in my 3rd term, I was approached by others even previously. Hey, a Rasta man in the legislature. I was the first Rastafarian to get into the Virgin Islands legislature. Usually, if you know the Rastafarian community, we don't participate in what they say, quote unquote, politics. However, it is my view that in order to have decisions made and laws and policies made that are supportive of my view, we needed to have somebody of my view at the table. Anyway, I ran and I got in the legislature. After about 3 terms, I was being approached by a few, and one person in particular, it really struck me. Of course, legalization has started happening in the States. And somebody approached me and he said, hey, and I did not want to be known for marijuana, the Rasta senator, if first you let a Rasta in the legislature, the only thing he wants to promote is legalization. So I did not want to be known for that. But a visitor to the island, actually, we engaged in a conversation about cannabis on the island where it's perhaps the best places to grow, and all of these things. He was actually an American banker. And after a conversation, another gentleman, a brethren, was on the beach, and two of them started smoking a joint. And he tried to pass it to me, and I said, "Hey, I told you I'm a senator. I can't do that." And he looked at me, he said, "What?" Anyway, we ended up going up to his house in a gated community in the Virgin Islands where he was renting. And those guys were partaking, and we started talking. And he said, "Why run from it?" He said, "Why don't you want that to be a legacy?" He said, "Man, that's you. Why aren't you just going full blast?" He said, "I expect you to smoke. I expect that you support." I mean, he just started to read me my rights, and after he spoke to me, I realized that, shucks, man, I was a little fearful. I was a little fearful of being accused of, "Oh, you smoke, that's why you want to legalize it." I was a little fearful of, that common, that what I say, that stigma. Okay. And after the gentleman spoke to me, I was like, shucks, he's right. How could I, a Rastafarian, have an opportunity to be in the Virgin Islands legislature and not advocate for something that the Rastafarian community has been advocating and being demonized for all these years? Rastafarians aren't the only ones who smoke or use cannabis. But if we were standing up in a crowd and somebody smelled herb, I would, the one with the locks would get picked out, So it hit me like, damn, Positive, you have to do this. I have to do this. I have to be the one to push this. I have to take up, I have a chance to sit. Here I'm at a seat in government decision makers, and I have a chance to bring the conversation to fore. Now, I'm going to tell you, I still have scars and wounds that have not healed because the attacks, the demonization. Remember, I started this conversation saying that marijuana in the Caribbean is very common. But yet, to talk about marijuana legally, mainstream, the churches came out. The older people came out. All of a sudden, I did lose a lot of votes in the next following election, but there was still enough support there to preserve me in the legislature. And I had to spend the next the next 4 terms defending my position, advocating my position, taking trips to Colorado and Seattle, and when I met the gentleman here, and to show my colleagues, one who is a lieutenant governor now, what and to see for myself, what does legalization look like on the ground? What challenges are they having? What policymaker challenges? What business challenges? Who are the people consuming? And it really delved right into cannabis, marijuana. And back at home here, man, you would swear I was bringing some a nuclear plant in the middle of the Virgin Islands. The opposition was mounting. Those who were in support were more quietly in support because, again, they too were like afraid of being looked at as, outcast, dopehead, and perhaps because of their profession. You had, that, and that's what, and so I started to be more bold. I saw what happened even with the the gay rights movement and talking about closet, and then realized that there are closet smokers also. They're closet parents. They're closet business people. They're closet professionals. They're closet diplomats. There's closet doctors, lawyers, who felt it necessary to be in the closet because of the stigma associated with the use of or support of cannabis, commonly known marijuana. So those who are in opposition were just stripping everything from me. I had colleagues making comments on the legislature floor, referring to me as Puff the Magic Dragon. Not because they ever witnessed me smoking, but because I was supporting legalization. I had a colleague who we got totally broke apart. I was like her mentor when she came in. And because I supported cannabis, and she had a son who had got into some other things, and she blamed cannabis for it. She turned against me. But I stood my ground because I was already in with conviction that cannabis, especially medicinally, which is what we were pushing at the time, legalization for medicinal purposes, that it's a no-brainer. We've seen, and they call it anecdotal evidence of what cannabis or marijuana can do. And I intentionally try to refer to it as cannabis because, even though marijuana is common name, we all know that marijuana is a name that's really got a classification given to it by the DEA, for their reasons. But it's totally, I had to be bold. I had to become bold. I had to say, if they say I want to legalize because I want to smoke it, my response would be like, so what? So what if that was my interest? So what if I want to be legitimate and legal if I sit back and decide I wanted to take a toke? So first we got decriminalization to happen. That was somewhere, and I'll perhaps get the dates wrong, but that might have been somewhere maybe around 2009, 10, maybe 2011, somewhere between there. We got decrim, which will allow a 1 ounce in your possession without getting, you'll get a citation. We have 90 days to pay a $100 citation, but they could confiscate it. It did not allow for any kind of cultivation, so that was already a taboo. Where you going to get it from, right? But I pushed what was I could get to at the time. My colleagues were very, very, resilient. They did not want to bend, and some of it was because, of course, they didn't want to seem supportive and fall into the category of attacks that I had to run up against. So we got that passed. We got industrial hemp passed. And I'll be frankly honest, my focus with industrial hemp at the time was not anything to do with CBD oil and hemp. And hemp oil really. It was more of for the fiber and to think about building products, using the stock. And if we were using the oil, they would be using the oil industrially. And then, of course, then came up with all this CBD stuff. So those things happened. And then we were pushing for medicinal cannabis. And just as I exited the legislature in 2018. 2018 was the end of my last term. I was making an effort to run for governor at the time. We didn't work out. We had some issues, and we pulled out of that race. And I did not bother to enter into the race for the legislature. So I did not really lose my seat, but I did not run again for it. I was going to run for governor, but we just stepped back after that. Did not work. So as I was getting ready to leave the legislature, my colleagues, I was finally able to get the support of my colleagues of the 32nd legislature of the Virgin Islands, and we passed the Medicinal Patient Care Act of the Virgin Islands. That was our Medicinal Cannabis Act. Okay, that was beautiful. I felt a sense of relief, and as I told the people at my exit, any other additional policy they want, they would have to advocate. They would have to jump out. They have to come out front now and push for other legislators to take this further. And sure enough, the governor who came in, Governor Albert Bryan Jr., and Tregenza Roach Esquire, who actually, as Tregenza Roach, he was a senator at the time, he took the trip with me to Colorado and to Washington State. So they signed that bill into law, made it an act. That was in January 2019, one of the first things he did. Governor Bryan and Tregenza Roach, Lieutenant Governor Tregenza Roach, just got reelected, and in January 2023, they signed the Adult use. They amended the Medicinal Cannabis Act and they signed the Adult Use Act. So now we have recreational cannabis here in the Virgin Islands. That's recently passed. We're just a couple of days away. It recently passed. Okay, that's okay, girl. It was sorry, dog barking. It was recently passed, and of course, there's a whole lot of excitement right now. So that's where we are. There are some people who are upset. Oh, you bring cannabis to the Virgin Islands, but there are many people who are very happy, very grateful that we finally made it to this point, myself included. We look forward to really having some events here and attract the rest of the world here with what's going on with cannabis here in the Virgin Islands. Of course, there's a some sense of redemption for myself and even for the Rasta community in general, because, you know, this is what we've been telling the world all along. You know, now we have some, what, 39 states, there's 40 states yet who have legalized cannabis, or maybe for some kind of form, maybe about 12 states who are recreationally or adult use. And here in the Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, at that, we have just joined in that. So, you know, and guess what? The most eastern point of the United States is on this very island. It's called Point Udall. So here you can have cannabis where the sun kisses America first. Imagine some sun-grown cannabis here coming from the U.S. Virgin Islands. I mean, think about that. I mean, I see you already salivating at the mouth. So for me, it's bittersweet because I am happy that it's done. Of course, you know, with what happens with all cannabis is that those who've been fighting all along, those who've been having to be under the radar all along, sometimes get pushed aside because now the big whales are coming through. You know, the big economic giants, those with the resources are coming through, and they want to capture all of this. You know, it's something I must say about the cannabis community. Usually the cannabis community is one of commune, one of coming together, one of sharing and sharing experiences, sharing product, you know, sharing love and joy, you know, that flower child concept. As this thing gets to commercialization and legalization, we're seeing corporate giants jumping in and their only focus is profit margin. For me, I don't want to get lost in profit margin. For me, it's very important that we maintain quality, good, clean marijuana, good, clean herb. Just like they have fine wines, you know, as a connoisseur, we want to sit back, you know, maybe with a glass of wine or not, and some good, nice, clean flour. Okay, I get it. People going to do all kind of things. There's some old schoolers who just really want to sit down with hopefully some that they maybe grow themselves without having to look for helicopters and DEA agents kicking in your doors. And you just sit back sharing in your experience with your cannabis that you grow. And anybody who's ever grown know that there's a real spiritual attachment, a real connection with the plants. You really, you know, agriculture in general pulls you into that. But I've never grown cannabis. But for those who grow it and be around, you can see what happens. It's a real connection with the plant itself. You can see that there's some kind that's some kind. You can see that there's a real synergy, okay, in the energy exchange between the plant and the human. And, you know, I don't have to go through all of the details about, you know, what the scientists have already learned and have exposed to us about cannabis and why it is useful to the human body and why we might have an urge to use it, not necessarily smoking in all instances. So I support that. So I want people to see my face and hear my name, Positive Terrence A. Nelson, as an advocate for legalization. I stand on the shoulders of Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and all of those, Jimi Hendrix, everybody who has supported legalization and who has taken being demonized, beaten. You know, especially a lot of the Rastafarians whose families were separated and locks pulled out of their head by law enforcement officers trying to discourage them from growing cannabis. For me, I feel every state, every place that has legalization should make an allowance for the Rastafarian communities of those states, of those jurisdictions, because the Rastafarian has been the target of this all along. Reggae music and cannabis seems to go together, right? Because we know what cannabis does for the mindset. But I'm not going to keep talking there. I'm quite sure you have questions for me. So my road with legalization has been a long, rugged road. However, I feel like we are the victors as the states have legalized, as other countries have legalized, as Congress will eventually legalize cannabis. We would have known that we were on the right all along, and maybe they just want to find an appropriate way to tax it and make money off of it. But let's not get lost in the money. Cannabis and the community is necessary. I believe if marijuana wasn't in use around the world, there'll be a lot more tension around the world. I feel cannabis use allows people to unwind, relax, and don't get all hyper as when they do with alcohol. And I'm not trying to make a comparison at this point. I'm just feeling like cannabis has its place in society, We know this. It's been on the ground for all these years. And we're just happy to restore her to her rightful spot as a product of this society that we live in. And what I love about cannabis more than anything else is that it breaks the barriers down. It doesn't matter your color, it doesn't matter your pocket, it doesn't matter your education. When people are in cannabis exchange, there's a communal exchange. On all levels. So that's my little story. I hope it's been interesting to you. From out of that advocacy, I was able to. One of my highlights is being on a March edition of the Dope magazine. I've been invited to speak at various events, including Cannabis Cups and other islands, and I look forward to that. I look forward to call on me to be an advocate, to be a voice, to participate in these kind of forums, so that I can share and we can encourage each other. Because until we get our governments of the world to relax its opposition to cannabis, then we're still not totally free yet. Doctors are still unable to jump in and really freely do the science on this, so we can talk about the dosages that the opposition still want to bring up. You see, so if we truly want to get into it, we're going to need governments to allow the research to take place at the level it needs to. So let's be honest, the congressmen know it, the congressmen use it, presidents have used it, and it's time to stop hiding this fact and just get past this and see how we can best make it available in a good, clean way to our community.
Well done, Positive. Well done. My hat's off to you, and sticking up for the plan and being a true advocate in the Virgin Islands down there and around the world. Really, everybody knows you out there and respects the work that you've done. So with the new law down there, who are the people that have the licenses been given out yet, and who are the growers?
Okay, well, nothing has been given. What happened? I'm on the Cannabis Advisory Board, and we're tasked with developing the rules and regs, as you know, which are needed in order to govern the whole the process. And we're at the point where we actually had just completed our rules and regs for medicinal, but then the legislature moved and they repealed and replaced the medicinal law and added adult use. So those rules are now going to have to be updated to include adult recreational use. No, we were about to issue licenses for to qualified for health practitioners who are qualified to qualify patients, and started with distribute patients qualifiers, and of course start to do the grow licenses, but that's we sort of have a restart on that, and there will perhaps be another hopefully, I would say within a 6-month period, because the rules, if we just add into rules that were there, but you never know how these things go. Unfortunately, bureaucracies sometimes make this take a little longer. What is not in this current law that I have already spoken to the good governor that we need to ensure that we get in there is that there should be an allowance for personal use, personal grow that does not require a license. Okay, I as an adult over the age of 21 should be able to grow, whether it's 6, 7, 12 plants, whatever the amount is. That doesn't require me having a business. Like, that's my personal use growth. I think that is essential to be part of any law relative to cannabis.
So when they enacted the regulated market just recently, did they totally wipe out the whole medical, or is it combined together?
It's now combined together. They had, when they repealed, so you took that law off the books, and then they repealed and replaced it with an amended version, and that amended version is now inclusive of both medicinal and adult use recreational. But that means there also are changes to what was already in place.
Thank you. I had some background noise I needed to, but well, you explained it well. So no home grow yet, but you're fighting for it, because home grow is like near and dear to my heart, and and at least in Washington, the patients can grow, their own.
Well, so in the medicinal bill, it allowed for patients to grow 12, but I think that too may have been removed. And I'll be frankly honest, I haven't. The bill is 104 pages. It's about maybe 2 weeks old now, maybe a week old. So I haven't read all of the details of the new bill. I stayed back and let the legislature do their thing. I wasn't going to get in their way. I was glad to see that, just a few years ago, I was the only one as a public official standing up and advocating, and now you have individuals clamoring about who gets authorship of this new bill. So that's great. That's now they're jumping out there wanting their name on it. So that's great. It sort of validates that I might have been ahead of of the time and the courage as it relates to people in this position. But I'm glad that they're finally on board. And most of these laws in other places, there must be some tweaking that's going to occur somewhere along the line. It's not may not be perfect at the time, so we look forward to that. We look forward to the tweaking. We look forward to just moving forward. But I don't want those who are looking for the perfect to try to hold back the rollout of our program, because they are still really in opposition.
Well, you definitely were at the forefront of the movement, pushing it along down there, and I don't think without you, they would be making any progress at all. So my hat's off to you, and you've done a really great job. I'm happy that you're on the board, on the cannabis board, so you can influence the people and show what's happening. We definitely need to make sure the Rastafarian community down there in the U.S. Virgin Islands and the everyday people are should be able to grow a few plants for themselves. So
definitely.
So my hat's off to you there. So let's see. So no home grow in the bill. Let's see what else. So what was the first type of weed that you smoked down there? What kind of cannabis did you run across? Was it grown in the islands there? Was it imported in from South America, maybe other islands?
So I can't say where strains came from originally. But cannabis was always around. Of course, there were some strains you heard from back in the day. Again, I'm not admitting anything here, Tom. I'm not making any admittances here. Okay, but I just being familiar with what was being said, Colombia red, Colombia gold, yeah, you hear them kind of conversation back then. I know what I have some brethren here that could give me some names, but just good weed, I do, of course, down here in the Caribbean, most of it is sun grown. We have sun all year long, so sometimes you have short crop, you have long crop, and but Yeah, it's a year-old sun. So I've seen some of the experts who have come down from the States and were here, down here. I've seen them make mention about the density of the terpene oils, on the cannabis here, that because of the sun, because of the subtropic area, it is doing something, real. As a matter of fact, according to Steve Cubby, who was here for a few months, and who came back and forth for a couple of years. I saw him jump on the phone and call one of his buddies in California, and said that he said to him that they had to rethink that theory of controlled environment producing better, stronger cannabis. And his comments were like, what he's seeing here in the St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, from outdoor, he was very promising, and he feels medicinally that it makes us much better medicine because of the density of the oils being created because of the subtropic area. So, I'm quite sure there are certain areas in the States might have this, whatever, mountaintop, desert area, whatever, but we sort of get this 12 months a year sort of situation. And we look forward to people who've had a chance to really, well, look, don't get me wrong, cannabis have been growing here forever, so I know that there are people who are undercover who grow some very good cannabis, and Virgin Islands cannabis perhaps have been secretly in magazines unknown to us. But I look forward to, just having open competition just to see what we produce. I look forward to research really taking place here in the Virgin Islands in a major way. So I want for people who have resources, especially for those in the cannabis world who have started to make some money out of cannabis, let's totally redeem her by entering spaces like ours where you can establish whether R&D establishments to really see what we really can do in sort of cautiously say perfecting, because we know perfection is a goal, is a pursuit, an endless pursuit. But yeah, to see what we can do about getting as close to perfection as possible with this commodity that is so good for the human body. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I give applause to the governor and the team. I am a cabinet member currently. Again, I remember I am Commissioner of Agriculture. Agriculturally, we gonna see how supportive we can be. The hemp is under agriculture, but the medicinal and recreational cannabis is under our an Office of Cannabis Regulation, which the law created. So I'm just glad to be at this point. I sort of feel like this one of the stars in Shawshank Redemption, that movie, the guy that helped everybody, he was an accountant that went to jail, and he was just sitting back as the guys got a chance to drink beer after tarring the roof, and just sit back feeling happy and satisfied that you had some part to do with it. You follow me? I feel good. I feel good about that. Hopefully we can talk about this in other forums, and I'm glad to say that I'm one of the faces here in the Virgin Islands, at least, to be at the front of a legal push. I know I'm not taking credit away, and I support and stand on the shoulders of all the Rasta brethren and Rasta families, and flower children, the Woodstock children who've stood up and fought, and all of these things. So I'm happy to be here in this time, in this space, being part of this positive movement.
That's for sure. I'm all about the terpenes, and I can't wait to come down there and visit you and try out some of this terpene-rich cannabis, because I'm all about the terpenes, and I'm all about sun-grown too.
Yes,
I don't believe you can replicate what the sun and the air and the wind and the breeze and the temperature flux. You can't really create that. You can't reproduce it. And so I'm a big, huge fan of all those things, especially for sun grown down there. So will you and here in the States, a lot of the small guys are being pushed out. So what they're doing down in Southern Oregon, some friends of mine, they've created a collective So they have a bunch of different farms. They have 15 now. They're going for 30. And at that point, they'll control 25 or 30% of the whole market by weight in Oregon. So they'll be able to dictate the prices and make sure everybody gets paid down there. So, I asked, I'm just reflecting of what we see here, that maybe, being on the commission, you can enlighten some of these people onto, how it's failed up here, and then what groups up here are doing down there. And I know they're totally different, but in some way, I see it preserving the small mom and pop farmers. In my opinion, I think all farmers should be able to grow it right along with their tomatoes and put it out on their little stand and sell it right with their tomatoes and their carrots and their melons and everything else, and of course, if you're making oils and medicinal other products, those could be regulated more. That's my opinion. So the current state there, they're still making up the rules, and you're going to be a part of it. So you think this is going to take about 6 months?
And hopefully, again, it's about meeting and seeing how quick the pressure is on now. The good thing about it is the pressure is on. It's not positive trying to push the pressure is on. The governor has signed the law. Those legislators in the Senate that wants to see that happen. The people are making demands now. We're in 2023, man. The first state legalized when in 2006, 2016, 15. I mean,
2014, I think, Washington State and Colorado, right around in there, 13, 14. They
right. So about 10 years later, we should have been like the first Caribbean island. You talk about a U.S. Caribbean island. Hello, so we need to make this big. As a matter of fact, what I'd really like to happen here is the federal government need to, just like they did, because they made an exemption with us for alcohol. So the federal government probably need to make an allowance here in the Virgin Islands first. That's as a sort of a, retribution, and allow us to, as federally sanctioned grows here in the Virgin Islands as an export product to the U.S. That would be beautiful, won't it? Because we're still most people don't know it, but the Virgin Islands is still an unincorporated territory. That's a modern name for a colony status. Okay, so for me, if the federal government wants to throw us a bone, they could go ahead on and federally sanction legalization here in the U.S. territory here first. And I'm not going to be selfish. In the U.S. territories, there are a few other territories like ours, Puerto Rico, Guam included, and the Mariana Islands. But I'm in the Virgin Islands, so I'm pushing for the Virgin Islands. To give us that, throw us that bone. We here been struggling with certain restrictions and being able to trade with even if it's through some compacts with some states. That would be beautiful. Think about it. That you have an operation that you helping to operate here, doing it your way in the Caribbean and getting it up there to your peoples up there in Washington. You're in Washington, right?
Yes, sir. Well, I would rather see personally your people grow it and then bring it up to the States and then promote it, as U.S. Virgin Island grown in the Caribbean cannabis. I think everybody should stay that way too. You know what I mean? I think that growing too big, and I'm not big on these multi-state operations coming. That's my next question. Do you think these multi-state operators? I know they're doing the same in Guam already, which is another similar statehood as you guys have. That they're moving in on these places and taking away from the community there. So do you see multi-state operators being able to operate in the U.S. Virgin Islands?
Well, I mean, we can. This is a free enterprise economy. I'm part of the U.S. We can't stop them. So, but we did put some inclusions in the law, as far as residency clauses, etc., to try to limit them imposing on. But money gonna find its way, Tom. We can't, let's not, be in any illusion. Money gonna find its way. Sometimes even they go to some of the small startup farms and they purchase from them, just pay them off whatever all they start up and include all of the startup expenses. And some people sell off their licenses after they get it established. So there's no perfect stop, but the idea is, and I support what you said earlier. For me, the best market, the best industry is one that's made up of the cottage industry concept, boutique farms, where people can specialize and care and nurture. And I think that if I'm a connoisseur, and I'm looking for something, I want somebody that I don't want big super grows. That's they can't tell me, what really happened with the cultivation of that plant. I would like to know because the farmer knows. The farmer know because it's a small boutique farm that he pretty much can almost be in touch with his plants, at least with each plant, at least a couple of times, a few times a week, if not every day.
Oh yeah. We tend to them every day when they're in the fields, no doubt about it. So back in 2010, the U.S. Supreme Court passed Citizens United, which made corporations people and money speech. Now we've seen the effects have been, my opinion, the effects have been pretty devastating here in the United States. What are your thoughts on that? And how do you think it's going to, like you said, you've already been talking a little bit about it, but how do you think it's going to affect cannabis in the U.S. Virgin Islands?
No, I missed part of what you said. No, it did what to corporations?
Well, the Supreme Court made a ruling, and they said that basically it opened up the floodgates for the richest people to have the most voice in politics because they have the most money. So it made corporations the same status as people, and speech, instead of being verbally, money speech now. So okay, I'll let you talk on it.
Well, I guess like same thing I did respond earlier. Money gonna always speak, and here in the Virgin Islands, it's a small town concept, so we try to hold fast, but it's gonna eventually bear in. There's people here with money that already trying to be able to influence the decision. So it's not like this. It has to come from outside. You follow me? There are big businessmen here who are wealthy, old money, royal money, who wants to be involved. My only issue I would have with them is don't be the pirate-like concept. Understand that the cannabis community is one with sharing, and they should not want to be the sole provider. That's taking away what it is. The beauty of cannabis is exactly that. Well, it's a variety, the spice of life. So I think you don't want that to change. They don't want it to change. They might think they do, but they don't want it to change. So for me, and I had to tell one of them this already, the people cannabis cultivars, providers are usually generous. People are generous of heart. Okay, not really selfish thinking, not really cutthroat. And that needs to be preserved because that's something symbolic with cannabis, with marijuana. When you see a session, whether it's a reggae session or people, you see people, again, more in a communal type of exchange. You don't see rambunctious, feisty behavior. You see people vibes meditating, people, talking about really deep dive conversations. So let's not lose that in the commercialization. And it's, for me, I don't mind talking to young people about cannabis use and wilding out and because that's taking away things that we work for, Tom. I did not push for legalization to see a bunch of young children acting stupid in the middle of the road because they high out of their mind. No, I'm a responsible parent. I have 4 children. I mean, they're grown adults now, but I expect that there should be some levels of control that children understand that there's time and place. Same thing with sex or alcohol. Let's put controls on it so that these young children, unless it's medicinal purposes, that we don't have them just knocking to dust and making true what the opposition have been saying. That, oh, our children are all going to become dope heads. No. I'm not a dope head if I use cannabis. I'm a high functional person that need to unwind at some point. And it's best I unwind before I lose it and go into work with some kind of automatic weapon and lose my cool. So those are the things we need to think about. Where does cannabis fit into the help with these mental situations, and how is it effective? There are a lot of studies with cannabis and PTSD, and they've seen where cannabis helps a lot. And I think I understand why, because it's like your conscious mind walking into your subconscious mind while you're awake. Your mind is walking back into your closet of your mind. And I think with people who go through trauma, they lock away that trauma in closet, in behind doors in their mind. And when their conscious mind is like being asleep or something, or being on a substance, allow their conscious minds to be, subdued somewhat, then those doors open. And those are the things that bother them. So I think cannabis is effective because it allows you to go open that door and take a look. And sometimes when you let it out, that's all it needs to happen. So, I look forward to what true federally sanctioned legalization will allow as relates to research for those individuals who can use the help. And legally get a chance to use cannabis and stop the hiding, stop not, because if you're using something and it works, you want consistency. And without legalization, you might go to a provider, a street provider around this corner one time, and then he comes back the next time and he doesn't have the same thing, and you have no recourse. So legalization at least allows you that also.
Yeah, those are people want consistency and they want the same thing. Life is really stressful. We found that, in the years that cannabis has been legal here in Washington State, across the country, that it really hasn't increased the youth using it. It's kind of stabilized out or even dropped a little bit in some states, in some circumstances. And for me, it's always helped me because I was really high strung, Pete, all the childhood stuff I had going on. It really just kind of guided me through my whole life and made my whole life doable. So cannabis has just been like everything to me. So on to the next, if you have something to say about that, I'd like to hear it.
I just have to agree with you that's it. Unfortunately, some people might judge you and feel like, oh, he's a substance abuser, but here you are, have a natural, item, a natural herb that you were self-medicating with that was not understood at that time, and fortunately now that the laws are loosening, and some doctors and some scientists have done some research that they can sort of affirm what you've just said in scientific terms.
Yeah, we definitely need to get the scientific studies out there. I think the federal government's doing that. Hopefully, what money won't play a role in that. I saw what the pharmaceutical drugs did to my dad, and from the littlest kid, I just said, "No way, no how. I'm not going down that route. I'm going down the natural route. Cannabis grows out of the ground, and it puts me in a good space where I'm highly functional." So,
and if I do have one concern about legalization, commercialization, is exactly that, where profit margins make people get greedy, and regulators turn their head and allow them to start doing other things to try to draw people in. I don't think it's necessary to do that. I look forward to to those who have been involved in keeping good, to the farmers who've been keeping good cannabis available around the world because no matter what country you go to, no matter what island, no matter what state, uh somebody there in that state, county, town that's growing some good herb, and there should be a network to tap into so that people don't have to hit or miss. So I thank those who've been holding steady, holding fast for all this time and just doing it, on the radar. Those who's been impacted not being able to get federal assistance because they had a record. Uh, you know, those things. I mean, just think about all the things that have happened. So here we are at this point in stage. It's a exciting moment for us here in the Virgin Islands, and I know for those states who have jumped in. And I know that you've spoken about some of the mishaps on the business front, entrepreneur front of individuals stepping into the business, but overall, government relaxing its holds on cannabis is a good thing. And yes, we have to try to safeguard and have parity and some equitable treatment of opportunities in it. But cannabis legalization, I feel if I had to check all the marks for all the plus and minuses, I would say that they are the pluses win, and I look forward to continue to be on one of those at the table, at the conversation, having this talk, including educating young people about responsible use.
Exactly. I would suggest, since you're on the commission, that you hold on some to your local strains and not bring in a lot of the strains from the states, because these multi-state operators or these big operators, they're money driven, right? So they're looking for the strains in their pheno hunts when they grow a bunch of plants and they're trying to see which ones give the most effect. They want those ones that give that quick 15-minute really good high and then it drops hard. So people continue to smoke more and more and more. So if you hold on to your local strains down there that have these long lasting, 3-4 hours of bliss, that's where it's at, my friend. That's where it's at.
Okay. I've heard, again, making no admissions here, but I've heard some of my friends tell me, that's the difference, when they go to the states where it's legalized, that, they get these things that might have some nice super flavor. I might give you that high jump, but then you're coming down, very, very quick. Whereas, like you said, the Caribbean stuff in here, they give you that nice gradual incline, and then it levels off at 30,000, 33,000 feet for a few, and then it eases back down again. Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, for the connoisseurs, for the old school users, for those who can value, like you don't want to have to sit down and just roll 3-4 joints in one session. No, really and truly, the truth is, you should be able to sit back, and roll a joint, and that's your evening, really. You just sip on that, and that takes you. And if you want one for the road because you've been there for 3-4 hours, then that's something. But again, when I see people do that, I'm always concerned when they just rolling another joint before they even finish the one that they're smoking at the time. That's a hype. That's people just excited, or either that or the weed is no good.
So my next question, what do you see the future of cannabis being in the U.S. Virgin Islands?
I think the future of cannabis in the U.S. Virgin Islands, perhaps around the world, but we have a niche here since we're in the Caribbean, we're outdoors, and the atmosphere, the ambience for outdoor beachside recreational lounges, or just like you have bars, beach bars, that you have cannabis bars, or just bars altogether, which includes cannabis, where it's just more. It does not really. It's not just. Like you said, I understand the dispensary concept, but they're gonna have to be able to have distribution points other than in just a dispensary. So if I, let's say I have a lounge, or I have a out, like right now I'm at Serenity's Nest. It's an outdoor space, it's a Zen garden, and if I want to be able to have people come here and use their cannabis, I would be good if I should be able to could have a little small distribution point here. I wouldn't want to call myself a quote unquote dispensary, but but there's cannabis available, it's pretty good, nice flower available, those things. So I see the future of cannabis being where it gets common, it gets normalized, where there are spaces where there's legitimate cannabis sale and use, and 'cause right now in most states that are legal, you have to procure your stuff from the dispensary and you have to go home or wherever to use it. What about a space just like I go for a drink at a bar, that I go like in Amsterdam kind of move, where I go in, somebody tell me, what do you want? And they come in order and I sit there and, have a smoke lounge. Just like they have cigar lounges. Cigar lounges gonna have to should it start to include cannabis, Um, those things. So I see that normalized use, and again, just to be clear for those the opposition who wants to come and say stuff, I am not at all advocating for young people under the age of, whether they want to say 18 or 21, out here acting recklessly, having access. The same way I feel about alcohol, the same way I feel about sex, that there's a time when that begins for a young person. And we should want to do that with cannabis use as well, for their own good, and they need to be educated about that. So my support, my advocacy is not blind and reckless. I'm not just some young kid trying to get high. I see that there is value in government being able to tax this commodity and use those resources to further help its citizens, and at the same time not make some of its citizens dysfunctional by giving them records and jail time and destroying families, and of course giving scientists and health professionals I don't even want to call it alternative medicine, giving them medicines to help patients in a real way. I don't see cannabis as an alternative medicine. It should be a first choice medicine. Your body has a natural receptor for what's in cannabis. So if this has a natural receptor and the only external source of these cannabinoids are from cannabis, then it makes sense that we should be using cannabis. Maybe not smoking in all instances, but it being into our bodies. I'm no scientist, but if your body have a receptor and what it wants to receive is from this plant, hello. So I see it normalized, Tom. I see it being available and accessible in spaces, even though controlled. Somewhat. I think there needs to be somewhat. Same way we don't want people, because people after money will sell it to children. And we don't want that. So there must be some levels of control still, because people get greedy.
Yeah, I would love to come to the Virgin Islands and go. I grew up on the beach myself. So go to a nice beach, little community, a Zen garden like you're in right now, and then smoke in the local favorites. What do you guys like? What's your favorite? I'm in your world, living in your world, eating the natural fruits, swimming in the warm water, enjoying your space. I would also really, really, really love to see what your favorite types of cannabis are and the different kinds that are grown locally. I think that's a huge part of the experience.
And what we can look forward to probably globally is exactly that: cannabis festivals, where in the places, spaces, and there, yeah, you heard it here. You heard it here first. I trademark copyright now. We're going to do it. Where people are just like that you have 420 days, and people go to Colorado and Washington and the different states do their thing. We have cannabis festivals, just like we have carnival and festivals here in the Caribbean. That there are cannabis festivals where that can happen, where you can taste and see what's happening in that place, and have that experience. And I think that in itself as you know, the that state or that place or territory will experience the influx of tourists and hotel rooms and restaurant dinners from such an influx of people coming to such.
Yeah, I agree. So this is the point of the show where I let you plug yourself, advertise yourself or groups there that you feel strongly about, email addresses, websites, whatever you're comfortable sharing. So, when people, you know, um, they know what you're passionate about and the groups you're passionate about. And, of course, tell them if you feel comfortable how to get in touch with you.
Okay. Well, I would very much, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to share my story with cannabis. I feel very confident and positive that, we are on the right side of this. And I'm here in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. You don't need a passport to come here from the United States, by the way. I do have a website, positiveishowilive.com. You can check me out there, communicate with me there. As you see, I promote positive thinking. I think cannabis is positive. I'm going to be on the cannabis advisory board, so there's certain conversation I can't have with people who might have business interests here in the territory, but I can guide you to the right offices. I'm currently the Commissioner of Agriculture. My email is positive__1 at hotmail.com. I'll say it again, positive 2 underscores, the number 1 at hotmail.com. I don't have to share my number. I don't want anybody call me and breathing in on the phone or anything like that. My cell number, I don't have such a public. It's probably very public anyway, but you can find me on Facebook. I am at Positive Nelson as well. And if you ever come to St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, I want for you to take a pass by Serenity's Nest. Serenity's Nest is a well-nurtured Zen garden developed intentionally for this. And we are 420 friendly space here in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. And currently, we're open each and every Sunday from 4:20 p.m. until 4:20, of course, is intentional. I look forward to other collaborations with individuals interested in pushing for cannabis. And, this theme here, being called a hero, is humbling. I'm just so grateful to be part of the process. Again, I'm not the first. And there are many individuals who suffered ahead of me and others doing this now. So we have to honor their effort. And, we look forward to one day. I look forward to one day sitting in front of a camera, perhaps in front of a national stage, and rolling a big, nice spliff of some good, nice homegrown and saying, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, man, this one is for you. And to say what the hell with whomever want to say whatever about that, because I would be legal and I would not have any risk of people running up there and putting me in handcuffs. And, and people will have known, because I already have an established record of achievements, that I'm a functional member of this and any community. And people who use cannabis aren't, outcasts. And I want to encourage those of us who do to remain high value citizens, to show others that, what we're saying here is not running around like a set of dope heads, but we're saying that for the intricate work that I do, I also want to be able to exhale. And if cannabis helps me to exhale, why the hell not? So, again, call me up, reach out to me, invite me to speak at any engagement. I'm open to it. And of course, we invite you to come on down to St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, or any one of the Virgin Islands. We're right next door to the British Virgin Islands. This is your gateway. So come on down and see America's Caribbean right here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. You do not need a passport to travel here. I'd definitely love to show you around here in the Virgin Islands, here on St. Croix in particular, because this is where I'm at. Much love to you. I really appreciate having met you personally, Tom. And I look forward to meeting you again. And, hopefully you take a trip down, maybe they did plan a trip down here and just, check us out, see what it's like. So let's stay in
Oh, I'm
contact.
going to once legalization is all taken hold, and I can stay at your facility down there, and you can count me in. I'm all about it. I love the beaches, and I love all the fruit. I love the culture, and so I'm really excited. So, any final words that you would like to say?
Keep in mind that until and unless we get the federal government in our case, and the governments of all these nations who have not yet fully embraced the legalization of marijuana, the fight continues. So let's stay on the fight. Let's keep pace. The job is not done yet. But congratulations to all who have done it. I thank and congratulate the legislators and the governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands, Governor Albert Bryan Jr. and Lieutenant Governor Tregenza Roach. And Tom, these podcasts you're doing here, I think are of high value. Preserve them, protect them. And I'm quite sure people will look back and laugh and say, what these guys talking about? This thing was this thing was illegal, and not even understand the suffering that some went through in trying to have access to good, nice cannabis. So thank you. Much love.
Yeah, well, thank you so much taking time out of your busy schedule and being a part of my series, Heroes of the Cream, because Positive Nelson, you're one of my heroes, my friend. So highest thoughts and blessings to you and your family and to all the U.S. Virgin Islands on this mission that you've taken and been the forefront in. And you've done so much for cannabis, not only in the U.S. Virgin Islands, but around the world. Your energy, your enthusiasm, your love, your just being has brought a lot to the whole movement for everyone. So on that note, I'm going to say so long, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you. I look forward.